So I was hoping, Obsolete, you could bring us back to the youngest obsolete you can remember being, whether it's Alaska or the next phase, and tell us a little bit about what you remember it sounding like with regards to the musical taste of your parents and the environment.
So, crazy story that I remember, like, not necessarily remember, but have seen photo and unfortunately VH, evidence because I'm old enough to be from when VHS tapes were still a thing and everybody had the big ass home camcorders and shit. Um, but I have seen video footage. I had to have been probably like 2 years old, dude. And I was running around the house in a fucking diaper and some giant cowboy boots that I had no business having on, and this little fucking hat, and running around dancing to I want to say it was Salt and Pepper's fucking hot push it or whatever. And don't quote me 100%, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And I saw that later on in life. That was one of those blackmail things that I always heard about and actually saw for myself. And I still wasn't fully known about my passion for music when I saw it, so I guess it didn't really make sense. But now, thinking of stuff like that, like you're exactly right, man. As long as I can remember, music, was a part of it. Like, you talk about that next phase. I don't remember much about Alaska. I don't remember much of a lot of my childhood up until I was about 7, 8 years old, right before I moved with my grandmother up in New York. Um,
And which part
but
of
I
New
know,
York were
like,
you in?
uh, it's a town called Little Valley, man, and it's exactly that, like population 1,007 or some shit. Like that was last year's census. Like it's tiny, tiny, bro. Middle of nowhere. Like my grandparents had 30 acres, give or take. Um, so that was pretty much the earliest. Like I remember being about 7, 8 years old when I lived on the military base in Olympia, Washington, and going to see like the Mount St. Helens and things like that. And that we'll get to later on because that actually plays a huge part of my life still today. Um, but like music wise, man, I was like 10 years old when I lived with my grandparents, and I used to go to church a lot because my grandmother was, big into church and all of that. And I was singing in, like the choir and doing like little competitions with youth groups and stuff like that. And that was really the first time I ever found, I mean, obviously, you hear music on the radio, all that, all that time growing up and stuff as you're a kid. But I guess then was really when I started to
So it's more
realize
like
how much it was impacting me.
so basically when you were like really young, a lot of stuff happened. You weren't really caring about the music as much. It was just more like a background thing that it kind of kicked you into high gear when you hit the churches up and
Pretty much, not. I know we'll get into all that later, but like my early childhood wasn't. I tell people all the time I'm pretty sure I wasn't wanted from the moment I got here, and then my siblings came along and just kind of verified that. So most of those childhoods and shit like that, I don't necessarily don't want to think about, but honestly, when I try to sit down and think about like memories from my childhood and really try to, I'm an average marijuana smoker. My memory shit anyway. But when you know what I'm talking about when you sit down and have those come to
actually, yeah,
Jesus,
I kind of
you
do.
know,
But sometimes when you go through some shit when you're young, this is not the funnest shit to go down that path.
yeah. And it's easy to push that shit out and try to leave room for the good shit that you remember. And that's why I said about the time I was 10 when I moved in with my grandmother. That was really I can remember a lot of my life from then on. It's like because although there was still a lot of shit going on, there was also heavy. Looking back at it now, exactly like you said, there was heavily influence of music that really started to mold who I became. And still becoming to this day.
Right. So like, do you remember outside of music if you had any like passions or hobbies from prior to 10 years old that you were like up to?
I always loved like riding my bike and doing like typical kid shit at that age. I was semi into like sports. I think I played like soccer when I was 7, 8 years old. Nothing serious like that. But really, no, man. I I didn't even get introduced to actual like video games until I was about 10 years old when I moved in with my grandparents. It's like, so, I mean, I think my dad had a PlayStation when I first lived with them before I moved up there, but like, they had one giant Dell laptop at the time, like, just crazy shit looking back like that. So, we didn't have a whole lot, and, living on a military base, I remember the coolest thing I could do then was I could ride my bike from the house to school every day because it was close enough to the house that I could just ride and park my bike at school. So I remember stuff like that. And then, like I said, the cool stuff going to like Mount St. Helen up in Washington. That was pretty cool. That was a unique experience. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as like that far back with my childhood, honestly.
I respect that still. I mean, I just like sometimes people have the wildest stuff, but even then, you just told us a whole lot about who you are through your story, and I think it's really interesting just to absorb that kind of experience.